Tony, thanks very much for coming in. There's been some confusion about the president's use of the words red line based on what he said at the news conference today. Let me play the clip of what he said a year or so ago and what he said today.
We have been very clear to the Assad regime, but also to other players on the ground, that a red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized. That would change my calculus. That would change my equation.
First of all, I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line.
All right, so you understand the confusion. Explain what the president meant by saying he didn't set a red line, the world set a red line.
Wolf, the president's exactly right. The world set a red line a long time ago, nearly 100 years ago, after World War I, when poison gas was used to terrible effect. The world got together and passed something called the Geneva Protocol that banned the use of chemical weapons in war. And then more recently, the United States Congress and countries around the world got behind something called the Chemical Weapons Convention in 1997. Countries representing 98% of the world's population ascribe to that. And that, too, says you can't use chemical weapons. And even more recently than that, the Congress passed overwhelmingly the Syria Accountability Act in 2003, and that was motivated in part by concern Syria was getting chemical weapons. Now they've used them. So the red line the president was talking about, that's exactly right. It's a red line that the international community set, it's a red line that Congress set, and it's also a red line that the president set. Is regime change still part of the president's strategy? So here's what people need to understand. We believe that Assad has lost his legitimacy, and in perpetrating the terrible violence that he's perpetrated on his people, he needs to go. And for the last time now, we've had a strategy in place to facilitate a transition, to move Assad out through a political transition. We believe that's the only sustainable way to do it. There's a civil war. The only way to end it is through a negotiated settlement. And so to do that, we've been putting pressure on the regime. We've been isolating it. We've been building up the opposition. And we've been pursuing a diplomatic track with principles for what a transition would look like. And we are committed to that. And in that context, Assad needs to go and there needs to be a transition. Separate from that, but within the context of what's going on in Syria, we've had this terrible use of chemical weapons on August 21st, killing well over 1,000 people, including hundreds of children. This is something that goes beyond even Syria and beyond the region. It goes to this international norm against the use of these weapons. We have to enforce it. Otherwise, Assad will conclude he can use it again. Otherwise, countries in the region and beyond who have weapons or trying to get them will conclude that they can use them with impunity.
A year and a half or so ago, Susan Rice, she was still the U.S. ambassador to the UN. She was on our program, which is seen live around the world, including in Damascus. And I said to her, look into the camera, talk to Bashar al-Assad. Here's what she said then.
Your days are numbered, and it is time and past time for you to transfer power responsibly and peacefully. The longer you hang on, the more damage you do yourself, your family, your interests, and indeed your country. What's taking so long?
Well, Susan was exactly right, and unfortunately, Assad has proven that proposition. He's done terrible damage in the interim. And we know that this is a difficult and frustrating process to get a negotiated political settlement, but we believe that it's the best way to proceed in order to have him leave power, because all of the other alternatives risk having something follow Assad that is as bad, if not worse. And in particular, we're very concerned that the state of Syria hold together after Assad is gone and that its institutions remain intact. We know what happens when that doesn't happen. We saw it in Iraq. And so the best way to ensure that is through a negotiated settlement. And part of that involves convincing Assad that he needs to go to the table and negotiate his departure. That's what we're working on. That's why we're pressuring him. That's why we're building up the opposition. Has the U.S. started delivering lethal weapons to the rebels? I can't get into the assistance that we're providing. What I can say is this, Wolf. We've significantly increased the assistance that we're providing to the opposition, to include both the civilian opposition and the so-called Syrian Military Council, which is the military arm of the opposition. We're supporting them. We're trying to make them more effective along with the civilian component, but I can't detail what we're doing or not doing.
Why can't you tell us? Because a few months ago, the president said he was going to start supplying weapons to the rebels. John McCain has made a huge issue out of this, saying, where are those weapons? And so he thinks that maybe they have started flowing to the rebels. And it's a simple question. Why can't you tell us whether or not the U.S. has started providing weapons to the rebels?
Wolf, what the president said a few months ago, and recall, this was a few months ago, our intelligence community came together and concluded, after looking at this for some period of time, that they had high confidence that the Syrian regime had used chemical weapons on a small scale, but repeatedly over the previous year. And at that point, the president had said that would change my calculus, and indeed it did. And what he said then was that we were going to significantly increase our assistance to the Syrian opposition, including direct assistance to the military council. What we're not doing is detailing in public what that assistance amounts to. So all I can tell you today is that following on the president's instructions, we've increased our assistance, and we're continuing to do that.
If the House of Representatives votes against a resolution authorizing the use of the force, will the president still strike?
Wolf, let me say a couple of things. First, when this first happened on August 21st, we began to reach out immediately to members of Congress. They were spread all across the country because it was recess. We heard lots of different things about what they thought we should do or shouldn't do. But one thing that was nearly unanimous was they wanted to be heard. They wanted their voices heard. They wanted their votes counted. And that motivated the president to make the announcement he made, which is to say, we believe we need to use force. We're prepared to do it, but we want Congress's authorization. So they've wanted to be heard. They want their votes counted, and that's what needs to happen. He believes it's very important that we get Congress's support because when we work together and act together, we're stronger and we're more effective. And I believe we're going to get it. We just saw today the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, thanks to the terrific work of its chairman, Senator Menendez, and its ranking member, Senator Corker, pass a resolution to authorize the use of military force in Syria. So we believe we're on track, we have momentum, and we will get there.
Well, what happens if you don't, though, if the House of Representatives, which is a Republican majority, and there are a lot of liberal Democrats who are anti-war, as they call themselves, they won't vote for it. What happens if you don't get that vote in the House?
So, again, Wolf, I believe we're going to get it, and I don't want to get into hypotheticals going forward. We're confident that we will get the support of the Congress.
But can you just tell us you will respect the will of the House of Representatives?
What I can tell you is the president very much wants the support of Congress for the authorization to use force. It is certainly not his desire or intent to proceed without it, but I can't categorically rule anything out because the president always retains that authority, and it's hard to know what might happen between now or then. But our strong belief is that we will get that support and we'll be able to act pursuant to it.
The most recent public opinion poll, the Washington Post ABC News poll, shows a significant majority of the American public opposes any military action in Syria. 59% oppose, 36% support. The president's still got a lot of work to do. When he gets back from the G20 summit, will he deliver an Oval Office address to the nation? Will he ask for a joint meeting of the House and the Senate? What is he going to do?
So, Wolf, first of all, I think the reaction that you're alluding to is totally understandable, because when people hear generically about the possibility of military action in Syria, the frame that they read that through, the prism that they see it through, is the last decade. A decade of war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, 150,000 troops in one, 100,000 troops in another. It's very important that people understand what this is and what this isn't. What this is a targeted, limited action to deal with Syria's chemical weapons, to deter them from using them again, and to degrade their ability to do so. No boots on the ground. That's what this isn't. It's no boots on the ground. It's not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. It is not even Libya. So it's understandable that people, their immediate reaction is concern that this would somehow lead to war. It will not. It's a target-focused military action. I believe that as people understand that, they'll understand the imperative of enforcing this norm against the use of chemical weapons and responding. And I can't tell you exactly what the president will do. I can tell you that he will be speaking to this both with members of Congress and with the American public in the days ahead.